really know what's going on over there other than everybody's dumb.
The instant you step out of line, you say something that they don't like and they don't like you personally, they're going to use all those pre-existing laws and they're going to use it on you.
Woman exposed her male genitalia to women and underage girls. That's what happened.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way. It's super cringe.
From TatumReport.com. The world is ending, it appears. How are you, good sir?
Oh, I think I've had better days, but whatever, I'll be all right.
I've seen better days.
Exactly,
I
bro.
feel like a shaved ape now, but we have a holiday tomorrow, so whenever there's a holiday, I shave and let the beard grow back because it's really bad. Not as bad as Ottawa, though.
What's tomorrow's holiday? What am I missing here?
Tomorrow, what you're missing is Family Day. Yeah, that's right. That's what it's really called. It's Family Day.
I don't know if that was maybe President's Day or...
No, we don't have presidents. We have prime ministers. You can topple their statues. You can cut off their heads on the statues. That's fine. But protesting for your civil rights is not fine, Eric. And the title track of the day is Rebel News reporter Alexa Lavoie is, that's French. Yesterday, she was hit with a couple batons. We'll show you that video. Shot with a gas canister. Don't know, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I think it's a tear gas canister. Could have been like a pepper spray canister. I'm not entirely sure. I wasn't there. But she's hitting the leg, and you're going to see photos where it looks like the guy purposely pointed it at their legs. But here she is, written by Big E and Miles Chong, IMC as we call him, excuse me. I don't know how much of this we need to read. We can read a bit. Prior to the melee, at least 2 officers can be seen accidentally dropping some of their less than lethal firearms and attempting to pick them back up as other officers push back the line. According to police, early Saturday, officers will attempt to retake more streets from demonstrators in the city's downtown core where more than 100 checkpoints remain. Eric, if you also didn't see, the Ottawa police chief announced that just for being at the protest, even if you leave, they will attempt to identify you and charge you and arrest you after the fact. How do you feel about that?
Well, so they're doing their like a carbon copy of January 6th, right? Where they are blaming and obviously the term mostly peaceful has been memed or parodied into oblivion. But when you have something that is mostly peaceful, as far as I can tell, I don't know, there was the story about how the big mean truckers were stealing food from the homeless. So
Never
that seems to
proven.
be never proven. But with that said, even if true, that is still a fraction of what we saw. And because look, I'm never going to let this go, right? Like the summer and fall of 2020 is never going to just go away. We're not going to pretend that it didn't happen. And it's painful to watch now these peaceful protests continue, just like we saw on January 6th of last year. And it will be used as a political sledgehammer for these crazy global thugs. I don't even know what to call. I don't even know if it's a cabal. I don't even like using the term elites, but the point is they are going to twist this they're going to spin it into oblivion to the point where in 2 years everybody's going to think that every single truck had a swastika and Klan hoods and all sorts of things.
For sure.
It's absolutely disgusting and nobody cared. Right? I mean, we protested here in the States. We protested because the police were so dangerous and they were manhandling people and killing black folks, and it was all just so terrible. But now that a young lady who seems to just be doing her job basically gets assaulted, literally nobody cares. Well, I shouldn't say that. Not literally. A lot of people care. But those cops, I highly doubt they're not going to face any consequences. We're not going to all of a sudden start protesting against the cop. I mean, it's such a tangled web, right? Like where they're protesting against Trudeau, they're protesting for freedom, but now that the cops have become henchmen of these political thugs. Maybe they should be protested against. So maybe, just to bring it full circle, we should totally defund all the police everywhere because the cops in Ottawa are acting like thugs. I mean, this is a complete mess, and I don't know how we're ever going to get out of it.
Well, the thing is, they can't, to your point about January 6th, they can't find anything to, point to that this is a horrible thing. Somehow the mainstream media is still trying this. They just paint them as people who refuse to obey the law, even though a year ago, obeying the law was not the right thing to do. But then
they also change the laws too, right? Like I feel like
course.
they change. Yeah.
Well, they make it so that you can be arrested for anything. So they've trampled a person. They said that a bike was thrown underneath a horse when it was actually a person who had fallen over in their mobility scooter. They're tear gassing people. They're hitting them with batons, which we'll see. They start busting in the windows of trucks and vans, and you can see them on video, like trained like they're supposed to. Smash the window, search around with their gun, stuff like that. So if you're watching, CBC or CTV News, you're going to think, yeah, these are people who are vigilantes. They refuse to leave. Probably a couple thousand of them. They hate the law, even though, this argument that all laws are just. And then if you actually see any independent reporters, you basically would have to not have the internet or not know anybody who's gone there. Like, I have friends of friends from back in the day who have gone there, and I know they're not like hardcore news guys. They just went themselves to see what's going on, and they decided to go back again. And seeing what's going on the ground, it's literally just tons of people, Canadian flags, every race, every age, and the police want to threaten you with arrest, with jail time, with losing your driver's license, your business license, taking your kids away, everything they can. And it's still not working. And somebody made a good point. If they send all these police there, they're not in other towns to regulate the protests there. So there's huge protests in Calgary, huge one in Toronto, et cetera, et cetera. And the police, they're really losing this narrative battle. And saying that now, I'll bring up this picture of Alexa's bruise on her leg from a gas canister. And I'm going to play the video now as well. So they're just bashing them after they've shot her with a gas canister.
Bring her out, come on. Bring her down there. Bring her to the left. Oh, shit. Guys, take her out of the crowd. Bring her to the left.
Hey, someone got shot in the head.
Oh, oh. Bring her to the left here. It's safe. Come on, guys. Get her out of the crowd.
So obviously she's wearing a Rebel News lanyard. She's got a microphone flag. She's been there for 3 weeks now. They know who she is. They're asking her what's wrong with her. And Eric, the reason why she can't say is because she's in pain because, they shot her in the leg. And I brought up this picture that I found, which is, here's the guy. This is our camera from our live stream, her live stream, an hour 3 in. There's the guy firing it, aiming at her legs, like aiming down. Like who knows if it bounced off the ground at all? Maybe they're just trying to shoot it off the ground. I don't know. I'm not going to make any definitive statements here. I wasn't there, but they're firing it down from inches away. And then there's another video Ian Miles Chong put out where they're hitting her with, I think this might be the same video. Yeah. But there's another one here producer Efron put out where this guy's just hitting her. You can see it in a second here. It's going to cut away, but then you're going to see the guy recoiling his baton. This is very long, just a second here. That guy's inching towards you right there.
So these are the stormtroopers.
It's about to happen here. You're going to see her get put, like, juked, and then he's saying, stay back, basically. Another tactic they're doing, Eric, is now that they know who the reporters are, I was watching Lincoln Jay's live stream the other day, and the cops are calling him by name. They're saying, Lincoln Jay, it's time to go home. Time to back up. Go off to the side. You have a Zoom function. Why don't you use it, Lincoln? Like, they're trying to play mind games with him as if he's like a protest leader or something.
That's kind of like it sounds like what they did with Leroy Press, right? Like, oh, you're not obviously. I mean, okay, I shouldn't say obviously, but I think you guys at Rebel have sort of established somewhat of a reputation, right? So they don't really care for your style of reporting, shall we say? It sounds like what they did to Leroy. It's like, oh well, you're not NYPD press. You're not
Yeah,
reporter
exactly.
press. You're not the spin machine. You're not the softball questions. You're not the friendlies. So you guys got to go. And do they look? This can work for a short term, but I have to imagine that they realize this is not going to work for the long term. Like, how long can you really beat people up and shoot? I mean, we're talking about, again, it sounds funny to say because the term peaceful protest has been, you know, marred, it's been smeared, it's been parodied so much, but how long could this possibly work for, to the point where we're just going to keep beating them, we're going to shoot them with pellet? Like, this has to end. And I don't know. I also heard, and you probably have some better insight on this than I do, but I heard that was it Quebec has actually is actually backtracking on the mandates. I think I got a whiff that this was maybe kind of starting to work, and the mandates were being backtracked a little bit. Is that true?
Well, Quebec took away their thing where they said you're going to need a vax pass to get groceries. They did that a while ago. Alberta during the
So that's not really a win. They said, "Oh, you don't need it to get groceries. Like, we're going to let you live." Okay.
In Alberta, the protests seem to have worked because I'm watching my levels here. I saw somebody complain last week. They wouldn't leave there, and then they lifted the vaccine passport immediately, and they said other stuff next week, and they're like, no, it's not fast enough. So they started lifting other things, and they got them to delete the app from their QR code app from the app store, whichever app store it was. They got the government to remove that from the app store because they still said, oh, we're gonna be able to come back and do it again if the numbers get too high. And Ontario, they announced they're getting rid of the vaccine passport March 1st, so that's like 9 days from now, and then the masks shortly thereafter. Now, that was part of the plan before, but it didn't seem like they were going to go through with it. They never actually released a reopening plan. They still haven't for full reopening. But now the premier, the governor, has changed his tune, whereas somebody asked him the other day, like, how is a restaurant who wants to keep the vaccine passport going to not be harassed? And how is a company who is getting rid of the vaccine passport going to survive without vaccinated people wanting to go in there because they feel unsafe around the unvaccinated? And he turns to him and he just says, listen, it's been too long. Everybody's sick of this. Nobody wants to wear a mask. We got to move forward. The problem with all that is we'd love to believe them, Eric. I know you would as well. But they're all falling in line across the world in the same time frame, all according to, like the Great Reset, everything within 18 to 24 months. That was all part of the plan originally. So can you trust them? I don't know. I wish I could. I kind of do not. So it's hard to get anything like on board. Hard to get on board with any of these guys. And it's funny you mentioned, I have another video about them wanting to do their own preferred like news sources is what they want. But excuse me, I'm fighting soda here. You're right, I'm addicted, Eric. I'm addicted to
Diet Coke or whatever.
This is actually a Pepsi Zero, Eric. Okay. Excuse me. What did I hear in I was
Just stick
watching
with water, bro. Stick with water.
I have that, and I have Gatorade Zero as well. I have water. I have everything. But yeah, they're preferred. See, in Canada, Leroy Press in New York, they can be like, oh, you haven't been issued press credentials from the NYPD or whatever. And then in certain other places, it's like the county or the government. In Canada, there's no such thing as that. If you want to be a journalist, like, that's up to you. You're probably not going to be accepted into like parliament or whatever, into government meetings. It's all like, get into the right club yet. And afterwards you can maybe get in. But here there's no such thing. So the police can't be like, oh, you're not press, you can't film in the streets, for example. And that's exactly what happened to the very same Alexa. And it seems to me that in this video, once the cop found out that she's from Rebel News, he's like, oh no, you can't do it, because he checks her press pass. It doesn't mean anything. I'll explain more in a bit.
Do you work or live in the downtown core here?
I'm working right now.
All right, who do you work for?
I'm a journalist.
Okay, do you have any credentials with you?
Credential. Yeah, I have it.
Okay.
But why you want to see it?
Because this is still part of the zone that's being affected.
I thought it was just the fence there.
No, that's just how far the crowds were pushed. The fence is
So-
there. It goes several blocks south of this area.
Okay.
Okay.
But what do you do with all the people who rent like some hotel room? They are allowed to go out of their hotel.
Do you have a hotel down here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm staying at Alt.
Pardon me?
Alt,
Where's that?
just Ladder Street.
Okay. It's not on this street?
Is there street next?
Okay.
It's just right there. It's been 5 minutes. I'm out of my hotel. I'm not a danger. I'm a woman alone. I don't know what's going on, and I just like report on.
There's police operations.
Oh, and
taking place
I'm
here.
getting filmed as well.
Imagine that. There's police operations.
Oh, you
taking
can't
place
film
here.
our
You're
standing
walking
by this
amongst the
truck.
cruisers looking at, does this vehicle belong to you that you were filming the inside of?
But I just showed to the word that police have break a window with the
Abandoned
baby
vehicles are being
seat.
cleared and removed.
Okay, but it's just a fact. You have a baby seat, and that's
Wow.
It is time. It's time to go. There's been messaging over the series of the last few weeks, instructing people not to be here.
I'm a journalist. I'm not a protester.
This was unlawful. It's time to go. Okay, so please be on your way.
I would
Thank
be
you.
on my way,
Yes,
but I
on
just
your way, please.
if it was CTV or CBC,
Do you have media accreditation?
Yeah, I have my
May
media.
I see it?
Yeah, you can see it. I think in Canada we have still like freedom of press, no? Yes or not? Just 1 minute.
Okay. This doesn't really mean anything to me. So you're gonna have to leave. Okay.
Independent Press Gallery of
okay.
Canada.
Okay.
It's independent
Okay.
press, so that doesn't mean
Thank
anything
you
for
for
you.
showing that to me, but it's time to go. Okay.
So you see, I have my press card, everybody.
Yeah.
Can I have your name and your badge number, please?
My name is Brad Milburn, and my badge number is 9467. And I'm asking you one last time. Please leave the area.
I'm
Wait,
going to
wait.
leave,
Thank you
but
very
why you don't?
Go ahead, Eric.
How did this start? What was she doing wrong? Just being out on
She
the
was
street? What was?
She was filming them bust open truck windows, like I told you. Any truck that's there, they're deeming it to be an unlawfully parked there because they've put up their area where you're not allowed to be. And so now they're breaking into trucks so they can, who knows? I'm not even going to say. What happened in Alberta is they got a warrant to search an RV and it had 10 guns in it. So whatever they're doing in Ottawa, they're breaking into these trucks, they're breaking into anything that's parked there, and apparently that means they're going to move them, according to what this guy said. So obviously it seems to me that they didn't like her filming that.
Okay. All right. Well, this has gotten completely out of hand. I don't see this ending well at all. Like, how does this end without? I mean, that's an honest question. Like, they're trying to beat everybody into submission. I mean, we went through the fringe minority, and then we had to the point where Trudeau was saying that these people are standing with swastikas and they're Nazis and all that sort of stuff. And that little buzz cut woman said, "I'm a descendant." Like, I mean, how does this possibly end? Right? We had the other never ending story about the transgender swimmer, right? And this is exponentially worse than that.
Right.
because
We
I
need to
don't
get to
really-
that too.
I don't really care about women swimming. I think I've made that clear. Well, anyways, how does this turn out, bro? I mean, that's an honest question. That's not like a rhetorical thing. Like, Trudeau is clearly going to be the most stubborn, like Hillary. You know, they're even. What was that other clip that went viral last week where the guy's like, if you're part of a pro-Trump entity and you donated thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars
Right.
to this, then you should be worried. It's like, what does Donald Trump have to do with this? What am I missing here? What does Trump have to do with this? And how does this really end? I mean, this to me, it feels like there's this is gonna come to bloodshed, bro. How does this stop?
I don't know, and it's not a good look for the police. And you see in that clip, he says this doesn't mean anything to me. I would like to know which press gallery credentials mean something to him. Would it be the parliamentary press gallery? Because that all that means is that it's a close knit group of people who decide like CTV and CBC, like she says, can go there and ask questions. There is no official press credentials in the entire country. Having said that, Alexa was at the debate asking the prime minister questions. She's as top level in terms of journalists as it comes. Like she was there at the prime minister debates for the leader of the country asking him questions. I don't know how you can get to a higher tier than that in journalism in this country, but he just took a look at that. He saw Rebel News. He didn't like it. That's my personal opinion on that. And then to say that it's time to go home. It's time to go home. This is what you hear people say who are civilians. You know how like when you hear something on CNN and MSNBC, those compilations, it's repeated, like teens and like people at a women's march will repeat the same stuff. I've heard people personally say that. What do you think of the protesters? Oh, I think it's just time to go home, man. You've proved your point. Have they proved their point? Are the mandates actually lifted? No. So it's going to come down to, is Trudeau going to fold or are the people going to fold? I think those are the only two outcomes. It's not a good look for hundreds of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds or thousands of police rushing through the streets, gas canisters. And I'm pretty sure, Eric, those green outfits we saw them wearing are old military coats. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. They've got gas masks. They've got old military coats. This old olive drab crap the Canadian Army stopped using in the late 80s to early 90s. Because when I was in the Army, you still see some of that old stuff floating around. Old people who've been in there for a long time have it, or it's floating around somewhere. That's what I think. And it's sad because they can't send the Canadian Army in there because they don't have the numbers and they're not trained for crowd control. You're trained to shoot and kill. You know what I mean? So they have to bring in these cops, these SWAT teams, and people to bust in windows. It's just the worst look. And I think the next thing we can get to, Eric, is these leaked text messages.
Well, just really quick.
Yeah,
really
go
quick.
ahead.
There's they have set no parameter. So of course they would just move the goalpost anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But there's nothing they haven't said, as far as I know, and maybe you can help me with this. But okay, when they're gonna put out,
press card.
I don't know who that is. They're gonna put out something like, when we reach 80% vaccination rate, then we'll stop it. Now, of course, we have no way of knowing what that, if that stuff's even real. They can just say, oh, we finally hit. You remember back in June of last year when California and New York within the same week reached their quote unquote 70% vaccination rate. So they reopened and told people they could stop wearing the mask. And then they went back on that like a week later. So I guess my question is, what are these people fighting for? What is the threshold? Okay, there's not one single case of Rona in the entire country, and then maybe we'll let you take the mask off. Maybe we'll let you walk down the street. Like they haven't set any goal. What's the goal?
Oh, there isn't one in Canada. They said the same thing. At first, they said 60 to 70, and then they went, get
Where are you
your
at?
booster.
I can't see you.
You can't see me. I can see you.
Oh, okay. All right.
60 to 70%, and then they said get the booster, and then it's almost 90%. There is no end in sight. I think they just wanted to keep it going for as long as they can. And now everybody, if these climate lockdowns happen when everybody and their mother has predicted this to be the next thing, then there can be no doubt about it. Did you know one of our MPs, which I guess would be like a House member in Canada, the other day said, I have a question for one of my constituents. They wanted me to ask, how many of the leading party, the Liberal Party, are in belief in lockstep with the World Economic Forum's reopening plan and the Great Reset plan? Can you tell us how many members agree with that plan? And then all of a sudden there's audio issues they had. They said, we can't hear you. I'll find that for us. But they said they have audio issues and they can't hear the question. But then somebody chimes up and says, oh, we have a person spreading misinformation now. So it's pretty It's pretty insane. I forget what your original question was. I apologize. But how does this end? I have no idea. Somebody's got to back down. I don't think it's going to be the protesters. More
I
people
hope it's
showed
not
up
the
once they
protesters.
started doing this stuff. More people showed up. And it's a long weekend, so people are going to stay. The
Even though
days are getting longer.
they're getting the days are getting longer, and I mean they're getting their money stolen. Basically, they're literally writing new rules or creating new laws, I should say, to so that they can label these people terrorists and keep their money from them. It's just I just don't know how we can look at this heading into the third year of this, and anybody that has made it through middle school can look at it and say, yeah, this makes sense. This is all about health. Like, no, it's just not possible. If you were to look at this with like just being a normal, rational, level-headed person, you would have to say this doesn't make sense. It just doesn't anymore. Trudeau or Joe Biden or any of these people, the facade is the further they dig their heels in, the harder, the more. I mean, I guess this has become a very obvious running theme of this show, but every time they dig their heels in deeper, somebody else awakens, right? And they're like, whoa, this doesn't make sense. Even like Leroy said last week, he's like, I have friends that got the shot and friends that didn't get the shot. And he even noted that people who got it are now saying this doesn't make sense. Of course it doesn't make sense. We're preaching to the choir as usual, but we'll move on. What do we have next? What were you gonna bring up?
Their text messages, but maybe one day we'll have a compilation of you saying maybe this will wake people up.
Yeah,
Because you've been saying that we're at episode 55, probably 22 episodes I'd go with.
I always think it will. I mean, it was easy for me with the empty testing facility. That was very easy, and we'll bring that up later. Anyways,
so they have their nice buffet at a hotel, the RCMP officers, because the hotels have been purposely booked. Like for the most of the hotels, they're claiming that they're all booked up. So the government either had them shut down or they booked the entirety of the hotels for their police. So that's what's happening right now. And we can scroll down to some of their text messages. Some sort of group chat got leaked. Social Musical Ride 2022.
Oh, I did. Did you post this? I think I did see this.
Rebel News posted it. I'm not sure. I don't think I did. So who is it? Louis Brackpool sends me this picture, and he says that talk about a bad looking beer. And I've been watching a lot of Bar Rescue, Eric, so I know that means that beer isn't clean enough, or else it would have had more foam on the top. A glass needs to be beer clean. So we know that thanks to John Taffer. But some of the dumber stuff they said looks like they need more leg into hand. Some of them they're reacting to the horse stomping. I'm trying to find it. More Shaq memes.
Shaq meme.
Okay, so this is the video. This one here is the video where the infamous one where somebody's getting stomped on by a horse, and nobody knows what happened to that woman, and they said wow, and somebody says that's awesome. Wow, which is a bad look. I'm trying to find the other one. Somebody said to save it. Make sure you save it for next week. Don't take it all up for us. Don't kick them all out. Don't kick all of them out until next week group gets our turn. And that's the guy giving the beer saying cheers. So he's waiting to go and bust some skulls next week. He doesn't want everybody to be kicked out. Which is just a great look for.
And there's nowhere to take this. You can't there's no law, there's no authority that you can say, oh, look at these crooked cops. Like they are the.
Well, at least whoever is leaking this stuff is a person in that group just being like, this is messed up, guys. I don't agree with it. But a point I was making the other day is how many, at least 60% of people in the country are for this. They voted. They've been okay with lockdowns. They've been okay with restrictions. A lot of them still want more stuff. 90% of them got vaccinated. So I'd wager that there's at least 60% of police that agree with this, agree with what they're doing. They think they're, getting these hillbillies and rednecks, they're getting them out of the city. They're stupid. They're unvaccinated. They're racist, whatever. I'd imagine a large portion of them at least agree with what they're doing. And considering there's maybe one person, maybe there's people in this group chat that don't agree with this and are in it just for the information about their police operations. But I'd imagine most of them, by the looks of it, they're okay with it. They're okay with it going out there, batoning people and stuff, and they're getting paid overtime. That's what he said. He says, here's to some sweet overtime this weekend for our on-call members. Don't kick all of them out until next week group gets our turn. Cheers with my non-good-looking beer. And he's watching CTV News in the background. So he's watching the mainstream media. He's drinking his poorly poured beer, and he's hoping to get his overtime next weekend.
So maybe if you guys just you got to find a black person. You need a black protester to take one to the dome with a billy club or one of these. What are they technically called? I don't know what they're really called. The batons or whatever.
I guess.
Yeah. You need a black person. I would gladly do it. It's cold up there, but I mean, it's still.
You can't get into the country though.
Yeah, I didn't get the juice. But you need a black protester. Maybe a trans will do the trick.
We do need a trans.
Yeah.
There's Sikh guys up there. There's Muslim guys. There's a guy who's carrying a Canadian flag and a Saudi Arabian flag.
I think
there's so many people.
So you need one of them to get hit, and then you can say, okay, Black Lives Matter, and then Trudeau will have no choice but to talk to him, because he said out of his own mouth that he would talk to protesters he agrees with. And if you think about it, as far as Black Lives Matter, at least in the greater New York area, are against the mandates. So maybe he should be talking to these protesters based on his own logic, but obviously that's not going to come true because these people are just complete weasels. And if I said what should really happen to them, the show would be pulled immediately.
I don't know what's going to happen. It's still going. I don't know what's going to happen. People just keep going. Like, how long can this sustain itself? I don't know. I guess we should get to Kyrie Irving now. That was in the title as well.
Because we have civil wars happening, right? We're having one, you're having one, but they're all part of a overarching, like,
Great Reset, you might say.
Yeah. So, but Kyrie, I think, does play into this pretty good as well.
Yes, exactly. Kyrie Irving. So basically, as I'm to understand this, Eric, they're asking why it's okay for other players who come to New York are allowed to play if they're unvaccinated, but Kyrie isn't allowed to play even though he lives there.
Yes, and Adam Silver. So the NBA, if we recall, was one of the first giant businesses. I think they were the first, like way back in March 2020, to shut down, right? And they said, "Oh, we're not gonna risk it. It's so dangerous. The Chinese virus is coming to kill us all. We're gonna shut down." So this, to me, seems like it could signal we are approaching the end, because if the NBA commissioner is now talking to the mayor of New York and saying, "Hey, this doesn't make sense." Now, of course, it doesn't make sense. Since the very first day, you could say, Adam Silver saying to Eric Adams, hey, so Kyrie can't play at home, but he can play anywhere else. And, other players that, Jonathan Isaac, for instance, I don't know if it's Isaacs or Isaac, but anyways, he plays down in Florida, but he can come to New York and play in the Brooklyn Nets Stadium or in the Knicks Stadium. He can also go to San Francisco and play against the Warriors, but they can't. The point is, obviously, it was so obvious that none of it made sense. Like, you can't come out now and say, well, this is kind of silly. Yeah, bro. We saw this when it first happened. We said it doesn't make sense, but you were pretending that it did. And now it's finally starting to hurt the NBA. So the puppet of China, NBA, who were the first to capitulate, are now saying, basically, as I understand it, they're now saying, okay, you know what? Maybe we jumped the gun. We did it a little bit too early. It's not really going to follow through. So how about we pull back and we'll reconvene in a year or two when Bill Gates comes out with another virus or we do the climate change lockdown. So I don't know. I probably didn't explain it very well there, but the point is, Adam Silver telling Eric Adams, "Oh, this doesn't really make sense," is like, no shit. Like, this didn't make sense from the very beginning. And now you're finally acknowledging it. Just like Gavin Newsom. Did you hear about Gavin Newsom, by the way? He came out with a thing called the Smarter Plan. You know how they love to make acronyms. So it's like science, mask, awareness, whatever stupid thing that he came out with. And it's like they're all pretending now, just like we all predicted, right? When people finally get to the point where they don't trust Fauci, they don't trust the CDC, people are finally starting to stand up. What did people say would happen? That the powers that be, these politicians, these thugs, basically, would come out and say, "All right, well, I guess it's over now, so it's time to get back. It's time for us to start getting back to normal." It's like, yeah, of course they're gonna pretend like this was always on the docket. When if nobody stood up, they would still. If nobody stood up, and Gavin Newsom and London Breed and they all weren't caught at these football games, they would still be telling you right now that you were gonna die if you step out the front door of your house. I can almost guarantee that.
How is this plan any smarter? It's the same plan. Shots, masks, awareness, readiness, testing, education.
There must be. Is there one more? Is there another R at the bottom?
RX.
Oh yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah.
What's different about this? Let's see. Most powerful weapon, 200,000 per day. Okay, who hasn't got one that still needs to get one is what I want to know.
Exactly.
More masks from China. Awareness, readiness, like testing. Already been doing that.
And we know the testing doesn't work, right? Like
this sounds like something that would have been implemented like literally when the vaccines came out.
Yeah, and look, and I've been following the California situation really quite closely, but there's fake testing sites that have been popping up in San Francisco, or what they call questionable, quote unquote, questionable testing facilities. But then you also have this place called Virus Geeks. I made a little short video about it on my channel, but this place called Virus Geeks just wasn't processing the tests. So they were supposed to be, and keep in mind also that these businesses, these quote unquote businesses, did not exist before late 2020. These are brand new businesses. It just has it has scam written all over it. But it's funny how in San Francisco they are differentiating quote unquote questionable testing sites against testing sites that have clearly dropped the ball on 14,000 Rona tests. So which one is questionable and which one isn't? You know what I mean? It's like it's all completely fake and phony as far as I'm concerned, but they're trying to pretend that testing is like, bro. And we also, last thing here, we also had Rochelle Walensky, who is probably less trustworthy than Fauci himself, which is saying a lot. And she said, what was this, 6 weeks ago, that, oh yeah, well, the tests don't technically correlate with transmissibility. Okay, so then what has it all been for? If I can't scuba, then what has this all been for? You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make any sense, bro. But you knew
it was
that.
never. I did know that doesn't make any sense. I just think that it's really like, to my point earlier, if they're just going to keep going around and around until the people can take no more. And I'm sure there's no body of people in California that are going to actually stand up and do anything. They say like San Diego and some of these other places are more conservative and they just don't have these rules. But for the rest of the people, I don't see anybody going to stand up to these rules that they have in place statewide. And most people aren't going to follow them anyways. Like Oakland, Compton, like all this stuff. Are people actually going to follow these rules of indoor gatherings and wearing masks and everything? Of course not. So it's really, really stupid. And we see in the rest of the world, everybody's backing off of everything. So they're just going to go along with it as long as they can. I mean, Klaus Schwab's going to be happier with you the longer you're able to perpetuate this. So, and it might sound silly, but there's that video of Klaus Schwab saying Justin Trudeau is so loyal to the World Economic Forum. How are you loyal to like an economic think tank? Like, how are you loyal to that? That means you've been implementing their plan, and people want to congratulate you for that, for following, the evil German leader. Which brings us to this video I was talking about, where somebody actually tries to bring it up, and they're like, "Oh, it's like the Prime Minister has said the Great Reset. Boris Johnson, everybody says Build Back Better." Like, it's not like it's past the point of conspiracy, like they try to claim. But now you've got a person who's probably editing themselves by saying this this misinformation.
Question commentaire, questions and comments. The honourable member for Oshawa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I listened to my colleague's speech. I had a constituent that wanted me to ask a question about outside interference to our democracy. Klaus Schwab is the head of the World Economic Forum, and he bragged how his subversive WEF, World Economic Forum, has, quoted, infiltrated governments around the world. He said that his organization had penetrated more than half of Canada's cabinet. And I was wondering, in the interest of transparency, could the member please name which cabinet ministers are on board with the WEF's agenda? My concern is the deputy.
Order. I know that the member was in a really good question there, but the audio is really bad, and the video is really bad as well.
What audio?
And I apologize. I don't know if the member. Okay, let's try again. The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Here's the guy chiming up.
Mr. Speaker, that member was promoting open disinformation. That's not debate. We have to call out disinformation.
We'll get into debate again.
What we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina, and so on, so that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
Oh, so half of his cabinet believes in the World Economic Forum. Like, and audio trouble, Eric. That's the most classic. That's like Chris Cuomo, your guy Chris Cuomo stuff. When
it's like the pipe burst. Remember the pipe burst? Oh no, I can't believe it. Kamala does the same thing too. Remember when Charlemagne the God, I think, asked her a halfway decent question? It wasn't just a softball, and she was like, I can't hear you. It's there was another very famous case of I can't hear you. I'm blanking on exactly what that was about, but yeah, it's par for the course. Oh, sorry, the feed dropped. But more importantly, though, Klaus Schwab he's not hiding, so I don't know why anybody continues to call this a conspiracy. He's literally saying this. It's kind of like when Joe Biden says, yeah, I fired the prosecutor, and they're like, well, that's misinformation. It's taken out of context. It's like he's telling you right in front of your face what he's doing, what he plans to do, and basically telling you who's on board. He's not going to point it right at their face and say, this man is on board. But I think if you listen to him and you see what's happening, especially in Canada, obviously in loads of other places around the world, you can get a pretty good idea of who is, quote, loyal to the WEF.
Well, they have a list of partners too. You can go up and look at most of Canada's banks are UK banks. You can go and look at a list of like all these different companies. Mozilla Firefox, which was one that recently, like anybody who's for like your generic like quote unquote diversity crap and progressivism, like they're all on this list. It's not hidden. And I'm guessing when Klaus Schwab was talking about this stuff, it's before people started paying attention to it. So before everybody starts talking about it, which they will, Tucker Carlson will within 3 months, I give it. Sean Hannity will within 5 months. Before they all start talking about it, everybody's been talking about it for over a year. I have a video from November talking about it. Do you want to give, before we run out of time, what's up with this Epstein thing? Another guy suicided, and I don't know how careful we have to be about this because I don't think they're going to take us to trial and then have to prove their case. So that's always a good thing to fall back on.
Yeah,
modeling agent linked to Jeffrey Epstein found dead in prison cell. We'll let this play a bit. We don't need the audio. Death comes less than 3 years after Epstein was found dead in his prison cell. Associate hanged in prison. How do these guys all find ways to hang themselves in prison, Eric?
Well, I think they probably get a little assistance from somebody. I can't say, okay, right? We remember the old meme of Jeffrey where he's like 6'2", but he somehow manages to hang himself from a top bunk with a bed sheet and some toilet paper or something. And when you look at the meme, it's very funny because they're like, well, this is what they want you to believe happened to Jeffrey Epstein. And of course, this is the second guy is 75 years old or something, and it's all just a little bit too convenient. And I'm not, yeah, of course, with Prince Andrew and
He can't sweat.
Ghislaine, or yeah, that is a bizarre story. But so, and I'm still, maybe I'm a little bit out of touch on exactly what's happening with the story, but Ghislaine, whatever her name is, she is under some sort of surveillance, right? So she has been found guilty of 5 out of these 6 charges that she was facing or whatever, but they haven't released the names of the people that she was working with. So again, that brings us to another meme where we have the Canadian contributors to the Freedom Convoy in Canada are being doxxed for donating $40, but we can't find out the names of the people who were paying Maxwell for underage women. So we've got quite a mess on our hands, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that somehow this Maxwell Epstein Brunel thing is somehow somehow related to Rona, right? I can't really put it together right now, but I feel like there is a connection there somehow, some way. They're trying to distract you by telling you you're constantly going to die while these people get away with human trafficking. Sort of like, I feel like these things are connected in a similar fashion as to why I think the transgender movement and COVID are related, right? Not in the most traditional way, but it's the way to get you to believe something. It's the way to sort of gauge your reactions and slowly normalize things, right? So we saw Cuties 3 years ago, and people were trying to basically normalize this weird sexualization of young girls, and now we have this. I mean, it's just real tinfoil hat stuff that I can't corroborate, but something's not right, bro. Like, if anybody who has found their way to step out from under the boot of the mainstream media, or the lies, the manipulation, the gaslighting, would have to look at this and say, look, you have to stand up against the chalkboard like Charlie and It's Always Sunny and be like, dude, something's not right here. It just doesn't add up. No matter how you slice it. What is I think it's Steve Bannon. He says there's no conspiracies, but there also are no coincidences. So something is happening here. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it's going to play out. But right now, it's just like we are in this terrible, terrible, like, purgatory of just living under the boot of these thugs from Trudeau and Biden and whatever's happening in Australia. We've kind of lost track of Australia too, by the way. They were
Yeah.
they were all the rage, but now the focus has shifted to Canada because of this trucker convoy. And what happened to Australia? Are they still jailing people for, breathing the same, like, oh, well, you came in contact with somebody but you tested negative, but you still, like, remember what was
they're basically in a lesser form of what we're doing. They have, it's Australia, so their protest is like campers and trailers out in the middle of nowhere. Avi Yemeni had this ridiculous video where he's going around to this encampment they have, and we'll get to this in a second. He's going around to this encampment they have in Australia, and he interviews this old lady outside of a camper. Everything's fine. It's at night. He interviews her. Cordial conversation. The next day he comes back, and people start complaining that this old woman said that he harassed her and banged on her door. The conversation took place outside while she was sitting in a lawn chair, and everybody's being like, Avi, get out. They made some mainstream news about this, about Avi out was the chant, and the woman comes up and she's like, you frightened me, you harassed me. Meanwhile, it's all on tape of him just interviewing this lady. And then so he does this video about that, proving them wrong. And then the guy who came up to him basically, being like, how dare you, then calls Avi and leaves him threatening voicemails in the dumbest move we've seen in a while. But so Australia's in like a camper protest phase of all this right now, but they are opening up from what I imagine. This guy Brunel headed several modeling agencies, including the famous Karen Models Agency, which was charged with sexual harassment and the rape of at least one minor over the age of 15 in December 2020. Earlier that month, he was detained at Charles de Gaulle Airport as he was preparing to take a flight to Senegal. At the time he was charged, the prosecutor's office declined to specify how many alleged victims of rape there were over that age. So they probably figured we can't control people in the Senegalese government. Easier to control. Ghislaine Maxwell probably has more connections in France. This guy's French too. Frequent companion of Epstein. He denied wrongdoing, of course. That's why he was in prison, I guess. He's willing to talk to investigators. So maybe that's the thing, Eric. He was willing to talk. And therefore, he committed suicide.
Yeah.
Don't get Steven Crowder's got a video coming, I'm sure, reenacting it.
Yeah, and this I don't know too much about this modeling agency that he owned or founded, but again, just connecting dots that perhaps don't even need to be connected. It just seems like, remember what was it, a year or so ago when we saw Victoria's Secret start to put the trannies on front of their magazine, and Sports Illustrated was the swimsuit edition and was now had a trans woman or whatever. And it almost to me seems like these modeling agents, these creepy guys who deal in these women are finally, I don't know, maybe they've hit a wall. They can see the writing on the wall, or they know that their misdeeds are maybe they might possibly face a tiny bit of consequence. So they shift gears completely to get on board with the woke stuff and get on board with all this transgender stuff. So that way you can't, it's a shield, right? It's the same reason why Joe Biden has to pick a black woman for SCOTUS, right? Because now you can't criticize that person. So if you are running one of these crooked modeling agencies that's trafficking women across the world, then of course you would want to start casting models that are transgender to sort of throw them off the scent. And obviously this is just my own bizarre theory, but the timing of it just doesn't really add up for me, bro. Like their house of cards is crumbling at basically the same time that we see Sports Illustrated and Victoria's Secret, and now we even have this Down syndrome model. It's just like something's not really adding up, bro. And these old people, these 70, 80-year-old people, they're like real life demons, are starting to face just the tiniest inconvenience, right? Like Hillary Clinton gets booed out in New York, right? But we all know nothing really is going to happen to them. But you see, as soon as one person doesn't buy their line of BS for just the tiniest split second, then these drastic things start to happen. So I don't know, man. This is absolutely disgusting. And just to bring it full circle, it is very concerning that there are quote unquote journalists reaching out to people who were doxxed for donating to a peaceful protest, but we cannot learn the name of even one person for sure who worked, we'll say, with Maxwell and Epstein.
Do you know what Prince Andrew's reason is that he can't sweat? Like his reason for PTSD? Do you remember?
I remember him saying that when he was trying to discredit some girl, but I don't remember exactly why.
It was during the Falkland Islands invasion, which is like the most minimal, like the UK military versus I think it was Venezuela or Argentina actually, and it lasted a couple days. The Simpsons make a joke about it, like they replay an old Krusty the Clown episode, and they're like, nobody's going to notice anything different, and then it has a bulletin of the Falkland Islands have been invaded, but this minimal thing, and he was on a ship that was next to a ship that got attacked. And him seeing that gave him so much PTSD, he couldn't sweat anymore, even though he was pictured at the time sweating. So I just wanted to point out his ridiculous story. And
but that's how stupid they think we are. That's how stupid they think we are.
Yes. You don't have any access to the internet. That was always Hillary's and Schumer's biggest problems, is they think people don't have the internet because they're not aware of the internet. And I think we'd be remiss, Eric, if we didn't close off today. What's the date today? Maybe I'm going to say week 6 of the Leah Thomas saga, week 5 or 6. What do you think?
Yeah. I'd say at least 5, right? Or no, actually probably 6, but we might have skipped 1, right? Like there might have been one week where there wasn't something there.
Let's try to remember that this is week 6 because we're going to end up talking about it next week, I'm sure. Leah Thomas sets Ivy League record in 200-yard freestyle. Surprise, surprise. 1 minute and 43 seconds. Finishes more than 2 seconds ahead of the second place person, and I'm going to show you the picture of that person in a second so you can compare. A day after Thomas won, and I like this writer because it doesn't say she. I don't think so. I haven't seen any she's yet. Oh, her next closest competitor. Okay, my mistake. 500-yard freestyle in 4 minutes, beating her next closest competitor by 7.5 seconds. A pool record at Harvard, but it was a few seconds slower over time of the Zippy Invitational. All this press, Eric, packing on the pounds, a few seconds slower. Also expected to compete in either the 100-yard freestyle or 1,650-yard freestyle. A fifth-year senior, so he's overage as well. And I want to get you. So here's Leah Thomas, big, broad shoulders.
Yeah.
Very hot dude. And then this is the second. Prepare yourself. This is the second place girl who did a pretty good job, frankly. It was a minute 43. It's weird that they typed it out like that, but a minute 43 to a minute 45. But again, Leah Thomas, big, broad shoulders. Leah Thomas's competition.
An actual woman.
That's who he's up against. This, the shoulder, making nice square shape versus tiny teenage girl. This is absurd. Absolutely absurd. If you think that there's the swim. This is a competition. This is a swim team he's up against. Just these poor girls who've been working so hard. And like I said, a little bit more than 2 seconds behind. That's how good this girl is. That a guy only beat her by 2 seconds and set the record.
And he's older than his. And he's a fifth year. He's a super
like
senior.
23 or something. And that's how good this girl is. That she was only 2 seconds away, and then this guy just completely robs her of coming first place in this thing. I'm sure working her whole teenage into adult life to be this good at this. I want to see if there's any more information in this that we can mock him for. Really just a bad person, Eric. Transgender stuff aside, a bad person to just be like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this. That's fine. It's like going in and beating up a chick and be like, oh, she started it. Like, very cool, dude. Great adoration you've got there.
I do have to, I mean, look, I do have to lay a little bit of the blame on the rest of the team. Look, the anonymous complaints are cool. It's better than nothing. But look, you know what I mean? If you mean it, say it, put your name behind it, sign it, and just be like, bro, this is not cool. If there, I don't know how many people are on a swim team, right? Say it's 12 women or 11 and one man, but you should be able to say, look, if all of you guys or all of you ladies are genuinely, objecting to this, then say it, put your name behind it. This anonymous stuff has to stop, bro. Like you said, how, look, I don't care. I don't use a pen name, and some people want to use a pen name because they want to keep their political life set. Like, look, they turned it into politics. Those women have all the right in the world to say, my name is XYZ. I do not like this, but they won't. They're too scared because the cancel mob has operated freely for we'll say a decade or almost a decade, to the point where a woman swimming in college her future would be over. Not only is her future going to be over because this man has come in and is annihilating all their records, but their future will also be over if they choose to say, hey, that's not cool. That's where we've come. It's a rock and a hard place for these young ladies, and it's absolutely pathetic.
There's more stuff about the other one, female to male, how the top 2 times in the 800-yard freestyle. Their team didn't win, but the male to female to male one had the 2 best times during her legs of the race. And then I wanted to point out at the bottom here, I don't know what to call. If this was a guy, I'd call him a cuck, but this is a Penn senior named Andy Myers donned a face mask with a transgender flag in support of Thomas. I want everyone at this meet to know that I support her. She's worked for all of this. No, she hasn't. And she's giving up so much to transition. No, she hasn't. And be authentically herself. and think it's really important. I think it's really brave. It's really brave that she's coming and destroying our lives. Like Stockholm syndrome, what do you want to call it? Let's
Stunning and brave. But let's also though we have to acknowledge that the female to male transgender swimmer is still competing with women.
Well, I hope Andy Myers understands now that if you search her name, it comes up with the other person. Like you erase yourself because now you've associated yourself with just this other person. That's the only way to find this person now. Is that her? I don't know. But like again,
bro, this is and Jesus. I am at a loss
maybe
for words.
One of these ones must be her. So that is the girl. So again,
So
I don't know why. Like anybody, can you just look like it'd be like let's put Kimbo Slice out there and let's stand him next to Amanda Nunes and we'll see. Like Amanda Nunes is big. She can fight at 145 pounds, so she probably walks around at 155, 5'9", knocks people out. She's big. She's best female fighter of all time. You put her up to a guy who's 185 pounds, a middleweight champion, or even a welterweight, and say, fight, and this is what you're going to get.
Wait. Hold on, though. We have to back up, though, right? Because Leah, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this.
Yeah.
Because Leah Thomas is swimming as a woman because that person has identified as a woman. Why is the female to male transgender swimmer not competing with men because that person identifies as a man? But we are told, I mean, is that not enough for anybody to be like, oh, this doesn't really make sense? Right? Like,
no, because you have to be accepting and progressive, Eric. You heard the girl, you heard Andy or whatever her name is, bringing a bad name to Andy's, which you could argue is a form of my name. We just have to support her. It's taken so much sacrifice to lose as a man and then compete against girls and become the world's best female swimmer of all time. It's taken so much sacrifice. Imagine Albert Pujols, who's like 43 years old, a baseball player now. Hall of Famer, probably. He's like, you know what? I'm 43 now. I'm transitioning. I'm so brave. I'm going to go hit dingers in like college women's baseball or something. Ronaldo, he's getting old. He's like 35. Still one of the best players in the world. Oh, I want to, I still think I have a few more years. I feel like a woman. Goes and plays on this. Imagine if, Eric, and now I'm going to put on your tinfoil hat, a male soccer player, doesn't have to be amazing, a known professional top tier soccer player says, I'm a woman. I felt this way the whole time. I'm going to go play in the American Soccer League with, Megan Rapinoe and that other one the Canadian girl who doesn't have a gender assigned to her. They would have to accept it. Imagine they didn't accept it. Imagine they had a problem with that. This guy's dominating. He's sprinting by these girls. He's going top shelf on them. That would be the biggest advantage. They wouldn't be able to push him off the ball. He'd be able to shoot harder and run faster, even at the age of like 40. Could you imagine? That would be amazing. What would they say? What would they say if a man joined the WNBA and was dunking all over them?
Oh, yes, Queen. I don't know.
It's going to have to happen. This is the only way people are going to learn, Eric. This has to happen. Women need to get dunked on for this to happen.
And they still wouldn't learn.
What is it? Over 90% or something in the women in the NBA are admitted lesbians, and they would have a problem with it. I have faith in them. You get one of these girls, these black women from Brooklyn, and then some guy comes in, Eric, you live there. You know the basketball scene. Guy comes in there and starts trying to mess with them. He's getting beat up in the locker room. He's getting beat up.
I would hope so. Like, okay, Lance Stevenson, for instance, right? I love Lance Stevenson. He's from Brooklyn.
Interesting.
He could show up. I don't know. He might be playing overseas or something. I don't know if he's still in the league, but he could show up to the WNBA. And look, something needs to happen though. And I'm just my whole thing with this week. Now, obviously, I am not on board with any of these shenanigans, but this week particular, I am angry. I have had enough with man participating as a woman but also a woman who wants to be a man still participating as a woman, like we saw with that little the soccer girl with the scars, right? Like you can't go halfway. You go halfway and say you want to
It's
be a
all
Ken
okay
doll.
so long as they're not losing. That's the thing here. As soon as somebody starts to lose, then it becomes not okay. It's as long as they have an advantage, then they're going to tell people that they have to accept it. Because that's why I'm sorry to impart this on them, but the percentage points of person who is professional athlete who then wants to transition is significantly lower than person who's professional athlete who comes out as gay. And there's a handful of those. Divide that by 100,000. That's how many professional athletes are actually, legitimately have something wrong with them. And they're like, I'm confused by my gender. I need to fix it in some way, this, that, or the other. Percentage of that is so low that it's basically non-existent. There might be one, okay, in every 10 years or something. But the soccer players, the swimmers, the sprinters, the wrestlers, how come every single one of them ends up being a champion? It doesn't make any sense. It only works when it benefits them. That's the only time it works. The closest thing you have is the weightlifter from New Zealand. And guess what? He couldn't do it when he was a man, and he had to join the women's side, and then he qualified for the Olympics. So it only ever works one way. As soon as the girl who becomes Bobby Sue becomes Billy Bob and goes to play in the NFL, tries out for the Arizona Cardinals or something and gets her spine separated on the practice squad, it's not going to happen. It never goes the other way because physically it's not an advantage. That's why the swimmer is still swimming against women.
And that is the exact same problem we have with Rona, is that no matter what happens, the advantage always goes to the establishment, right? It's the same thing. It's the same concept, right? Like, well, remember, we all remember, and I'll leave it
go
with
New York Italian on you.
Yeah, it says Fauci. It's Fauci. Okay. Nobody right now should be wearing a mask, George. It might not provide the perfect protection, but right now, I don't think anybody should be wearing a mask. Fast forward 6 weeks, it just makes common sense to wear 2 masks, right? Like, the advantage will always go to them.
Do Fauci making excuses for transgender swimmers and why they should be allowed?
Well, George, I mean, Andrew, as you can see, when the transgender swimmer becomes scientific, the viral load does not any longer operate as that as a man. So we're still waiting for that data to come in, and we will be forthcoming when that data arises. But right now, it's just soft evidence, George. I mean, Andrew, I'm we're just gonna have to wait and see on that. That's what he says. It's all word salad. It doesn't make sense, bro.
I think how they have Pandemic War Room, Raheem Kassan and Steve Bannon. It's all about the pandemic. Yeah. Our podcast should be, all about transgender athletes. Trans War Room.
Look, I think we have a couple good ideas in the pipe, bro.
Making the band thing. I also want to turn that to us watching like movies that were made for Black people and like me asking you questions about it. Because on the weekend, and I messaged Eric so many times about this over the weekend. I watched this movie called Shotas. I should bring it up.
Which I had never heard of.
Neither had I, but I have a very good streak of watching movies that are clearly for Black audiences and them being good. This was probably the worst one of them all that I've watched, but I watched Shotas and I was just texting Eric about everything in this movie. They were so Jamaican I could barely understand it. It's starring one of the Marleys, a Marley that I haven't even heard of, Kai Manny Marley.
Oh, I have heard of him.
Wyclef was in it as well, even though he's Haitian. But this is the other, and that seems like a shot stolen from Bad Boys, by the way, the plane flying over Miami. But I think that's another idea, Eric. We watch Black movies from the 90s, and I ask you cultural questions.
And then is that why I think a while ago you asked me if I'd ever seen Booty Call?
Yes, exactly. Jamie Foxx. That's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
Which I have seen that, but it was a long time ago. I definitely don't remember it. But I think these are all good ideas. I think it'll break the monotony of, because right now we're on what? We're in week 3 of Trucker Convoy. We're on week 6 of Tranny Swimmer. So am I, and I don't even know, like, look, okay. We have
If
the
you
Joe
need help
Rogan-
watching any white movies, I can help you through that too. I just don't know what that would be.
I don't Inception. I don't know, bro. I don't know. I don't know what a white movie
Matrix?
is. The Matrix. Which honestly, those could both probably stand. Could stand a rewatch. But look, bro. I think
What about
we
like
need
those?
to break
Sorry
the
to cut you off.
monotony.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying we need to break the monotony of these highly depressing fake news stories day in and day out.
I can think of like high school football movies and stuff like that. Varsity Blues, starring the guy from Dawson's Creek.
Vanderbeek, right? I think his name.
Yeah,
is.
that's right. It's a good movie. Just
The
anything
Blind
like that.
Side. Is it maybe actually that might be a black movie? I don't know if that's black or like that might be.
Like just Road Trip is one you could look up. American Pie seems like it's probably a very white movie. I don't know. We're getting into shady territory here, Eric. What is white? What is black? I don't know. All I know is I've been speaking in a Jamaican accent for 2 days now at home.
We gotta. I think we gotta just start with making the band too, and then we'll.
We do.
We'll have to branch
All right,
out from
we're
there.
gonna. We need our job this week is to find a dedicated download of those episodes, and we'll start next week. We'll do an extra half hour after this podcast and do it.
And
next
the
week.
the Podbean account. All right, we'll
I
take
know.
this offline. We'll take this off.
Happy Family Day, everybody. That's just a thing we made up in Canada, so we don't have to work. See you guys later.
Festivus.
Turn it up, Jordan.